All right, can everyone hear me okay? All right, how many of you have attended a UW football game? Now let's say that all of you are consistent with the average college football fan and produce around 1 to 2 pounds of waste per game. For reference, 1 pound is about the size of an average football. But let's take this a step further and multiply this number by Husky Stadium's seating capacity, 70,138. This would mean that each UW football game has the potential to generate up to 140,000 pounds of waste. This can have detrimental impacts on the environment, as landfilled waste is a powerful driver of climate change and environmental degradation. At Husky Stadium, the goal is to divert at least 90% of this waste away from landfills. However, the main challenge the stadium faces in achieving that goal is waste contamination. Waste contamination refers to compostable or recyclable materials that are deemed too dirty to be processed and therefore end up in landfills instead. Within the stadium, this problem mainly arises due to human error, since sorting is generally voluntary in public spaces. For this reason, I sought out to investigate how educational signage could influence human waste behavior, asking the questions, how does signage influence UW football game attendee disposal behavior? And what are the best strategies for reducing the amount of waste contamination caused by fans during games? To answer my questions, I interned with UW Athletics and focused on researching and drafting waste management recommendations for Husky Stadium, as well as conducting an observational study. During the summer, my internship partner Mason Wesley and I attended the Green Sports Alliance conference and conducted 15 interviews with Pac-12 sustainability professionals. We gained insight into the successes and challenges of sustainability programs and utilized this research to draft a report with both short and long-term waste management recommendations. It was clear there is no one-size-fits-all approach to zero waste, and that a variety of different solutions must be implemented in order to achieve 90% diversion. Of the short-term recommendations, I designed new educational infographics to be hung on the concourse with information specific to waste diversion at Husky Stadium, the initiatives that are currently in place, the goals of the department, and the ways that fans can contribute. Using these signs, I designed my observational study to investigate how these educational infographics could impact human waste behavior in Husky Stadium. The first game of the 2023 season served as a baseline measurement for understanding human waste behavior in Husky Stadium with no infographics present. Infographics were then placed above 2 waste stations along the main concourse for the second game. For both games, Mason and I randomly observed every 3 attendees' disposal behavior, recording factors such as sorting behavior or critical thinking. My observational study found that informational signage does not guarantee that humans will participate in waste diversion behavior. This chart shows compares the amount of people who sorted their waste at the first and second game, with the x-axis representing the date of the football game and the y-axis representing the number of people who sorted. As you can see, there was very little change between the number of people who did or did not sort their waste when infographics were or were not present. In contrast, there was an increase in critical thinking during disposal when infographics were present, as you can see here. Critical thinking was determined by the amount of time subjects spent disposing, if they made eye contact with bins, or if visible confusion was displayed. Even with the proper tools and intent, confusion and convenience often cause fans to struggle to sort correctly. For this reason, increased critical thinking did not correlate to an increase in waste sorting. Concluding both my research and interviews, I found that while signage is important, a more impactful approach would be to limit the materials in the waste stream rather than relying on humans to do the right thing. Passing policies to ensure that vendors comply with sustainability initiatives has high potential for reducing the amount of landfilled waste a stadium generates. This could look like buying only compostable or recyclable goods, or through buying less materials in general, such as one type of cup, one type of lid, one type of tray, etc. Through simplifying the waste stream, consumer choices would be reduced, making composting and recycling easier and less confusing. In turn, that 140,000 pounds of waste could avoid being sent to landfills, mitigating climate change and environmental degradation, and making the earth a dog fan for the rest of time. I would like to thank my site supervisor, Karen, my faculty advisor, Chris, Mason, Lucy, my family, Green Greeks, my friends, and the POE community. Go Dogs. That's a great question. So the question was, when fans were disposing, were there items that were easier for fans to sort and items that were harder? I'll start with easier. I would say aluminum cans were incredibly easy for fans to know where to put. And I would attribute that to it being a streamlined material. For the most part, aluminum can recycling is accepted in all parts of the country. So people know where to put that material. It almost always goes in the recycling bin. On the contrary, I would say that the compostable materials were a lot harder for fans to know where to put. Composting is not streamlined in most parts of the country. And also within the stadium, there's so many different types of compostable goods, which could range from compostable plastics to paper products, that a lot of the time when it came down to when fans were disposing, it was either too quick of a transaction that they just chucked it wherever it was supposed to go, or they even looked at the signs and just still couldn't figure out where it was supposed to go. So given the amount of materials in the stadium that are compostable, a lot of it could go in compost, but a lot of it doesn't end up there just because fans have trouble knowing where to put it. Thank you for that question. Yeah, so the question was, were there any programs that were particularly successful in achieving zero waste? That's a great question, and I am so happy that you asked, because when I was doing my interviews, I actually got to talk to someone from USC who I had already read an article about, and USC's program is pretty impressive. The entire university has passed a single-use plastics ban, so nothing in their stadium is technically landfillable. So they created a two-stream waste bin program where everything in the stadium is either compostable or recyclable. And they also have pretty well-trained staff that almost all the materials do end up in the same place, and they consistently reach 90% diversion at almost every one of their games.